existing firm capacity from retiring.
You were over at the UN yesterday, and you've called UN climate talks, which are set to take place in November in Brazil. You've called that whole process silly. But President Xi Jinping of China came in a message to the assembly yesterday and said he didn't reference the U.S., but he said some countries are backtracking on the energy transition, and he said that everyone should maintain unwavering action on efforts to work to curb climate change and transition. Are you at all worried that China is taking the lead on renewables and is going to dominate this industry? An industry like, for instance, solar that was invented in the U.S.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. U.S. technology. So first context, and then I'll go back to the China comment. The world has spent about $5 trillion in the last 20 years on wind, solar, batteries, and grid that enable the connection of wind and solar to our grid. $5 trillion. It provided last year, 2024, 2.6% of total global energy, all the way up to 3.0% in the United States. Very tiny amount of energy for trillions of dollars. And to come back to the China comment, what's been the demand for energy has grown much faster than that. It hasn't even been it's only been a small slice of the incremental demand for energy. It hasn't displaced any existing demand for energy. But here's been the impact of that. The early movers, Denmark, Germany, United Kingdom. What's been the result of that? Germany spent $500 billion themselves in their own country for their Energiewende, their energy revolution. They went from 79% of their energy from hydrocarbons in the German economy, 79% to somewhere between 74 and 75%. 4 or 5 points of reduction. Like that would be centuries more for even Germany to get to zero. They tripled their price of electricity while doubling the capacity of their electricity and producing 20% less electricity. $500 billion, 20% less electricity at triple the cost. So what was the result of that? German voters are angry, German people are angry, and industry has left Germany. You can't afford to make energy-intensive stuff. Germany was an industrial powerhouse. And where did all that stuff go? To China. China's been a huge winner. When the United Kingdom shuts down their steel industry and their plastic industry and their auto industry, where does that industry go? A tiny bit of it goes to the U.S. The majority of it goes to China. So that this sort of rush to net zero, it's been a home run for China. It's been horrible for people in wealthy nations that have seen their electricity prices rise and their jobs go overseas. If you're in Africa, or at that African forum we was at yesterday, infuriating. They thought colonialism was dead. They tried to build a coal power plant in Mombasa in Kenya, a country that desperately needs more electricity. No one would touch it with a 10-foot pole or fund it. So to me, we've been immoral to people in low-income nations. We've been immoral to people that are low-income in our own countries. But the huge winner has been China. We've shipped our energy-intensive industry to China because guess what? China says whatever it wants. China built 100 coal plants last year and has 100 under construction right now, 100 gigawatts of coal plants under construction, brought on last year, 100 more under construction right now. So it doesn't matter what China says about climate policy. They're growing their electricity, they're building their industrial might, and they're saying, please keep sending us your industry. The race to net zero brings us industry. Please keep sending it.
You studied solar in university, but we're about the same age. I mean, solar is much different now. It's approaching 40% efficient. Are you not afraid that the U.S. is just giving it away to China and letting them lead? And I mean, we're talking about the future. I mean, these things develop.
But you're right. But see where you were, though, 40% efficient. Like, how much room for improvement is there? 2.5 times. 100% efficient is pretty hard. We'll get higher. So there's upside in solar, but not a ton, actually. Not a ton. Costs have come down, but costs have come down for the panels. They're a tiny part of the cost of solar. The main cost of solar is land, grid connection, and the biggest cost by far is how do you deliver electricity when the sun goes behind a cloud or most every night when it sets. That's the cost of solar because you have a grid running and the sun comes out, a natural gas power plant has to produce a little less electricity because you got to balance at all times so that because the solar electricity can get on the grid. When you don't burn that little bit of natural gas, that saves you 2 cents for that kilowatt hour that's not generated, but it costs you about 10 cents and 4 cents of government subsidies to replace that kilowatt hour.
We've got about, well, this will be the last
question. But I'm
question.
bullish on the technology. We are working on our national labs, new solar materials, solar to power things in space, solar for energy in remote locations in Alaska to Africa and all that. Solar has a future. I'm enthusiastic about that future. We're supporting research on the future of solar energy. So yes, it's going to go around. It's going to be here. It's never going to power the world in large scale. But from its 1.2% today, it probably gets several times bigger than that. And I'm cheering for it, just without subsidies.
I have loads more questions, but we only have time for one more. This week you've